turn on the microphone. We have, this is an executive session on the interim study bills for the Resources, Recreation, and Development Committee. Might as well start from the very beginning, unless someone has a question or a comment. Seeing no one. On House Bill 426, relative to shoreland septic systems. Representative Harb, you ran a work session. Can you, it says I have to, should recognize you to present the recommendation of that subcommittee work session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had submitted a report to Heather on the results of the subcommittee session. I'll read that report briefly. Representative Spang spoke about her 2-year shoreline septic system commission and did submit testimony to the subcommittee. Representative Gottlieb expressed concerns about short-term rentals and how it stresses septic systems. Representative Healy supported local control. Representative Harvey Bolio suggested a study committee. I supported the Board of Realtors' concerns. Initially, a motion was made to recommend future legislation that failed. Another motion was made to not recommend future legislation that passed by a vote of 3-2. For this session, I make a motion that this matter not be recommended for future legislation.
Motion or not to not recommend future legislation. Recommended by Representative Harb, seconded by Representative Harvey Bolio. First of all, do you wish to? You have already spoken. Do you wish to speak on your motion?
I think I've said what I'd like to say on it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Would you like to speak on your motion? We'll have to sign this on your second.
No, thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Spang.
Thank you very much. I was on the subcommittee, and it seemed to me that the conversation happening on the subcommittee was counter to the final recommendation. I think that everybody in the subcommittee recognized that this was a serious problem. There was a little bit of discussion about whether the way the bill actually proposed to solve the problem was the right approach. But as we know, it's not the bill that we're talking about, it's whether there is a problem that needs to be solved. There was some conversation about how it might be better if it were solved if a bill were put forward that recommended that it be more of a locally controlled thing. So it occurred to me, I was surprised by the vote because it seemed to me that the subcommittee had felt there was a problem, had felt that there was a solution that could be explored. And so I would strongly recommend that we change the committee's recommendation to take on this very serious problem and keep working on it. Representative Harvey Bolio suggested it needed more study, but this bill came out of a very thorough 2-year commission that studied it. I don't think another commission is necessary, but if another bill is put forward where alternative solutions can be explored, I think that that would be adequate and badly needed. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on the committee who would like to speak to this? Representative, yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would agree with Representative Spang. I think that
one of the things you have to take a look at is that there is a problem out there. Having been a town planner in a lakes community, we have serious problems with shoreline septic systems. There was a 2-year commission that addressed this issue and studied it in depth. And the recommendations that they came up with are pretty much what you have here in this bill. And to study it further really solves no problem. Maybe some minor amendments to this thing to take in some of the concerns that some of the members have here would be in order. But this bill came out of a 2-year study to address a problem that we here in New Hampshire spend millions of dollars on, both at the state and local levels. We spend a tremendous amount of money to keep our waters clean. And if we just sit there and say we're going to do nothing, we're not addressing the issue, and we're really letting our constituents down. New Hampshire is successful because we have such a great environment here. And to just let it go, we're going to destroy that, and we're going to lose that advantage that we have. I think this is a bill that really should have further consideration, and a bill should be introduced this next session to address this issue. And I would be happy to work with any members of the committee that are interested in furthering a bill for the next session.
Just let me first first see if anyone else wishes to speak. Is anyone else? Representative Smith and Representative Spang.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe that as Representative Grassi said, we all are aware that there are issues with non-point source pollution, which is in many cases septic systems. And we all, I don't know of anyone who doesn't want our lakes to be clean and, which supports tourism, which supports healthy lives. There is E. coli in some lakes that is preventing people from swimming and causing a health hazard. So although I agree that this bill itself as written is causing problems, I do think there is a solution that all sides can agree on. And so I would say future legislation could try to bring those stakeholders together to find a way to get to yes, and in which case future legislation, not the one that House Bill 426, is definitely in order. Thank you.
Representative Spang.
Just quickly, I wanted to address the concern that Representative Har brought forward relative to the realtors. And the realtors have told us after the original hearing and then after this hearing that they're very anxious to work with us to solve this problem. So I think that indicates that probably there is a good opportunity for us to come together with the realtors to solve the problem if we continue to study it.
Anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Vale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to be voting against the motion to not recommend the bill. And I just wanted to reiterate that we're very aware of these issues. And at this point, I think we have an important responsibility to protect clean water. And we spent the last 2 years finding ways to try to keep our water safer and make it safer. And this one is clearly indicated. And so we do need to stop our declining water quality. And I do think that future legislation should be addressing that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Well, I just have one thing to say. I want to assure people that due to the structure of the interim study procedures, there are minority reports are not allowed. So Representative Smith and myself, we've talked and we have come to an agreement that any minority thoughts on issues will be mentioned in any final report, just so that all ideas will be will be presented. So, it isn't that, it's not gonna be just one way, so the report, but all we're gonna be voting on is the motion right now. Is Representative Crichton?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question on procedure. This vote, if we say, okay, this bill is, it does the right thing in terms of protecting water, but it does it in a wrong way. And we say, okay, this bill, it doesn't make sense from that perspective. That does not preclude another bill from coming in saying, we're going to protect water in a different way, maybe one that the realtors would have input into. And I'm just trying to understand the exact procedure.
In actuality, and in reality, what we say here and do here does not affect future legislation whatsoever. All it is, so I have, in my time here, which is not as considerable as some, but it is fairly considerable. I don't believe I've heard ever any testimony that, oh, this bill was not recommended for future study, so you really can't study it now, or for future action. So we as a future legislature couldn't do anything couldn't do what we wanted with it. So the actual outcome of what we were gonna put out, of our work product, will probably be go into a file somewhere for reality.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
With that, if it being seeing no one else, will the clerk please call the roll?
Okay, Representative Harb,
Yes.
Representative Huff,
Yes.
Representative Golds, Representative Horgan, Representative Creighton,
Yes.
Representative Dodge,
Yes.
Clerk votes yes, Representative Healy,
Yes.
Representative Mayville, Representative Post,
Yes.
Representative Smith, Representative Spang,
No.
Representative Grassy, Representative Gotling, Representative Cohen, he's not here, okay. Representative Connors, Representative Vale, Representative Kelly is not here. Representative Moran is not here. And Representative Egan is not here. Representative Egan, okay. Okay, Representative Cohen, okay, I thought I said that.
Representative Cohen votes no.
Okay, no, thank you. Okay, so that's, one, two,
And me.
and Representative Renzullu.
Yes.
Okay. That's 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 yeses and 6 noes, and motion passes.
Okay.
6.
And Representative Harb will write the first draft of the
So it's a
report.
vote.
Happy to do that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay. Next. Okay. Oh, that doesn't go good. All right. Now, next item is House Bill 1167, establishing a maximum contaminant level for perfluorinated chemicals in surface water. I think there's I'd like to recognize Mr. Deers, who's just to give us an update on the DES's position on this bill, and we were looking to get some of your guidance and help us on making our final decision.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Ted Deers. I am the Assistant Water Division Director for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, and it is a tremendous pleasure to be in front of you today. As you recall from previous testimony, DES was not supportive of this bill. Largely, there was some technical difficulties, but also the primary reason is that we are in the process of creating the very thing that this bill would have us do, which is to create surface water quality standards for PFAS compounds. Where we are in that process, which has been long and tortured, I will assure you from my side, is that we are within, I think, probably a week of having a draft of that out on the streets, a red line draft of our 1,700 rules that will include the 4 PFAS compounds that have MCLs, you are all become painfully familiar with, that those will now be included as water quality standards and will apply to waters 20 miles upstream of surface water intakes. So this is on its way. We gave an update to our commissioner yesterday. We are finalizing that red line draft, and we will be scheduling some stakeholder meetings to occur on that over the next month. We anticipate being in rulemaking by the beginning of the year, which would have these rules come into effect sometime in first half of 2023. So that is the intent. That is where we were headed. This will go through the rulemaking process. You all will have an opportunity through GLCAR to see it again. And, we are looking forward to getting this in the can. So if there's any other questions about that, I am very happy to include you all on that red line version when we have it out. That will be a that sort of non-formal rulemaking version. That is a draft, but it will be one that has been pretty well vetted over the past couple of years through a variety of different stakeholder opportunities. So at this point, there really shouldn't be any surprises.
Okay. Just then as a follow-up, just to be certain, you would not have any heartburn if we did not recommend this bill for future legislation.
Thank you for the question. We are, like I said, I think that we have this well in hand as a department. We take this seriously. The number of bills that have been recommending this is a testament to the seriousness by which you all take it. And so we do not think that additional regulation is necessary. We've gotten the message, and the product will be delivered.
Okay, thank you. Is any other questions of Mr. Deers? Representative Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Deers, for taking my question, which is, one is, when will there be public hearings?
Yes,
you
thank
have
you
any
for the
idea?
question, Representative Smith. We anticipate a public hearing will happen. I would expect it would be in January or February at this point. That would be when we first publish the proposed rulemaking. So we would very soon thereafter, within probably, it has to be, within 60 days or so, I believe, is the rule. So we would have that hearing. I'm thinking it's going to be January, maybe early February-ish. And so that will occur. So we will have a public hearing on this. But additionally, we have a longstanding Water Quality Standards Advisory Committee, which has hundreds of people who receive the emails on that. Generally, those folks who work in your communities, the people who run wastewater treatment plants and water treatment, so as well as their consultants, all sit on, receive those emails, receive that information. That call is widely attended. and has opportunities for virtual attendance as well. So we'll, send an opportunity out for you all to see that, and that'll be an opportunity for the experts in water quality and the implications of water quality to be able to let us know what they're thinking in an informal way prior to the formal rulemaking process, which includes that public hearing.
Okay. Follow up, Mr. Chair?
For a follow-up.
So, did I hear that you will send the committee an invitation to listen in on that call, the stakeholder thing, or?
Absolutely. No,
Okay.
I would absolutely love to have this committee. It is an opportunity for you all to learn all about the excruciating detail of water quality standards in this fair state.
Okay, and then one more follow-up,
For a
please?
follow-up.
Thank you. You testified that EPA is kind of going in a good direction as far as setting PFAS water quality standards. Is that moving along at all?
Don't know that I have characterized it as a good direction, but I would
Okay.
definitely say that they are going in a direction. So what we anticipate happening is that we anticipate that EPA is also going to start a rulemaking process on MCLs, that is for drinking water. Recall that New Hampshire is light years ahead of many other states in the country on this issue. So these rules are really being focused, the effort is being focused on the rest of the nation where this hasn't gotten the attention that it has here. So we're not sure where that's going to end up. We do anticipate that, but if we think that the state rulemaking process is tortured, try the federal rulemaking process. So we think that will be a long effort before those MCLs become rule, and we don't know what those numbers are going to look like. They have not yet released those, but there will be. We do know that will be happening sometime around the beginning of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions by members of the committee? Seeing none. Representative Smith, do you have a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to not recommend for future legislation, at least this year anyway, because DS seems to be doing their job.
For a second? Seconded by Representative Cohen. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Representative Smith?
I think yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we all understand the importance of MCLs and rules getting passed regarding surface water. I know that in my district, Plymouth, the Water and Sewer Company was very upset when these bills were introduced because they just felt like it was going to be a really bad situation for Plymouth. So I think that allowing this process to play itself out, and I'm assuming that the people from all the different water and sewer districts are in the stakeholders group. So I think this is a good direction to go. Thank you.
Anyone else with a wish to comment on the bill? Representative Cohen, do you wish to speak to your second? I'm sorry.
Yes, I think Mr. Deers gave us an excellent explanation of what's going on, and that the intent of the bill was being met, and that at this point, we don't need legislation to put that effort in motion. It's well under control right now.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Chair. On House Bill 1167, motion not to recommend, Representative Harb,
Yes.
Representative Huff,
Yes.
Representative Gould, Representative Horgan, Representative Creighton. Yes. Representative Dodge.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Healy,
Yes.
Representative Mayville. Yes. Representative Post,
Yes.
Representative Smith, Representative Spang, Representative Grassy, Representative Gottling, Representative Cohen,
Yes?
I'm just going to call a name, Representative Connors, Representative Vale,
Yes.
Representative Kelly, not here, Representative Moran, not here. And Representative Egan, not here. So that's 17 yays, 0 nays. Motion passes.
I'm voting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Representative Renzullo.
Yes,
Okay, sorry.
unanimous.
That's still 17. I counted you
I know.
ahead of time. Okay. Sorry about that.
So,
I get it next time.
moving on. House Bill 1440, relative to surface water quality standards for perfluorinated chemicals. Don't go away, Mr. Deers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 1440, we provided testimony about this bill. We provided testimony that we were opposed to this, and largely the reasons are there are technical defaults, technical challenges within this bill, the way that it addresses this, especially the way in which things are added together. And again, the way that this will ultimately come together is through our water quality standards, which I just spoke about. So the one other point I would just make is that EPA, this refers to, one of the parts of this bill is that it refers to the effect of PFAS on aquatic organisms. I will also report that EPA has now told us and told the states that they are working on guidance for the states on setting PFAS standards for critters. So that is going on and will progress. This is an effort that will eventually get published as something called 304A guidance. 304A guidance become part of what every 3 years the state, we go and look at our water quality standards. If there is new 304A guidance from EPA, we are obligated to use that as part of setting our water quality standards. And if we don't want to use that, we have to have very good scientific rationale for not using that. So it is an extraordinarily large project of national implication to look across all of this. And New Hampshire would never have the capacity to actually do all of the science necessary to look at what is the effect of PFAS on all of our aquatic organisms. So it is important that EPA take this on, and as we've heard now, that they intend to, over the next year or so, develop these criteria for aquatic organisms. And then, like I mentioned, as part of our federal process with EPA, we would be obliged to bring those into our water quality standards. So this bill is essentially, it's saying to do what is already being done. And so we don't think that it needs additional regulation. This is something that I think one could look at, in the next session to see what the progress is happening on this. But this is something that is in the works. Thank you.
Are there any other questions of Mr. Deers? Representative Grassi.
Yes, Mr. Deers, I think you basically brought up one of the contentions I have. You're saying that we could look at next session possibly, or later on in the second year. But if this bill was available to you in January for amendment to maybe address some of the things that are coming down from the federal government as well, wouldn't there be value in that?
Thank you very much for the question. The challenge is that nothing is going to be sort of ready for prime time from the federal government in January. We're a year out from that, because even the MCLs that they're developing will be draft, so those won't be adopted. There won't be a thing yet. And in terms of the 304A guidance for aquatic creatures, again, we won't even see a draft of that for another year. So there's really nothing. The only thing that we would be certainly, I think, happy to do, and we will be doing with the committee, you're going to have a lot of new members in the committee next year. And one of the things that I've recommended to the chair and offered to the chair is that we would be happy to come in and talk about where all of these things sit across these different efforts. There's been a whole plethora of bills that have looked at these issues. there's lots of moving parts to this, and there's lots of different activities going on between the state government, the federal government. There was a great article on NHPR this morning about soil standards, soil remediation standards. Again, there's progress being made across all of those activities. I don't think that a bill is necessary to do that, but I certainly hope we'll have the opportunity to address the committee in the next session to give an update on all things PFAS.
Anyone else for a question of Mr. Deers? Seeing none. Representative Harb, I'll ask you for a motion.
Based upon our testimony, I would recommend not recommended for future legislation. Not recommended.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Representative Creighton. Representative Harb, do you wish to speak any more on your motion?
No, just to reiterate, based upon what we heard during our initial testimony and hearing and what we heard today from Mr. Deers, I suggest it's not ready for prime time and that we just say not recommended for future legislation and let the job be done. Thank you.
Would you wish to speak on your second, Representative Creighton? Representative Grassi, you wish to speak on
Yes,
the motion?
yes, Mr. Chairman, after the testimony of Mr. Deers, I would also recommend that we not recommend this. I have introduced this as an LSR, but I will be going down and taking it out. I introduced it as LSR just in case there was, the state hadn't gone any further on this. I think we're making efficient progress on this at this time.
Anyone else wish to speak on the motion? Seeing none. Am I seeing none? Am I bad eyes? Seeing none? Will the clerk please call the roll? Not recommended.
On not recommended for 1440, Representative Harb,
Yes.
Representative Huff,
Yes.
Representative Gould, Representative Horgan,
Yes.
Representative Creighton,
Yes.
Representative Dodge,
Yes.
Clerk votes yes, Representative Healy,
Yes.
Representative Mayville, Representative Post,
Yes.
Representative Smith, Representative Spang, or she's stepped out, not present. Representative Grassi,
Yes.
Representative Gotling, Representative Cohen,
Yes.
Representative Connors is not here. Representative Vale,
Yes.
Representative Kelly is not here. Representative Moran is not here. Representative Egan is not here, and Representative Renzullu not. least.
No, it's not here, no. Representative Renzullo votes yes.
Okay, that would be 16 yays to 0 nays. Motion passes.
Motion passes.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Next one is, okay. 1452, House Bill 1452, renaming the Department of Environmental Services, the Department of Environmental Protection, and assigning the department oversight of private drinking water wells. I know I'd like to hear from DES.
Yes, morning all. For the record, Mark Sanborn, Assistant Commissioner, New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. Just following up on previous testimony, DES, the Commissioner and I are very much opposed to this bill, despite, I'm sure, well-intentioned by the sponsors. The two elements of it, the renaming, has a cost associated with it that is unnecessary. Not to mention, we believe the current name is much more in the spirit of the New Hampshire approach to these issues versus the proposed. For the other element, as stated previously, this is a language in search of a problem that doesn't exist. We have all ability we need to access areas if we need to test. We have never had a problem, and we don't feel we need this authority to make sure we are doing our proper regulatory responsibilities. So, again, while well-intentioned, we would sincerely hope that you all would move no need for future legislation on these items.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, Representative Smith, you have a motion?
I make a motion to not recommend for future legislation.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Representative Harvey Bolia. Do you wish to speak on your motion, Representative Smith?
Well, of course. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not even going to speak to the name change because I think that we heard enough about that and the cost, and it's completely different than the rest of the bill, which is more interest. I mean, I think it's really important that people get their wells tested, but I do believe that people have that option, and if we were to pass legislation requiring DES to inspect and test private wells, we would be giving them policing authority, or they would have to call in the town compliance officer every time they wanted to do that. And it's not just like checking the wellhead, it's going into their homes to check the faucets in the kitchen and the bathroom and stuff. So that's not good. And also the cost of doing, wait, I had some other notes. Where are they? Right now, people can have their water tested, and if they're in areas that has been noted for PFAS, I believe that in a lot of times that is paid for by the state. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is that, and I think Representative Renzullo can say more about that, is that we did pass legislation that became law this past session to open up the opportunity for private homeowners or private well owners to get grants or loans for remediation if their water tests positive for PFAS. So I think that, you know, doing it on a voluntary basis, and as we heard from DES during the initial testimony, people want to know what's in their water. They want to know if their well is contaminated with PFAS. And so those maybe few people who do not want their water tested, that's their right. But otherwise, most people, the majority of people are taking it on to have, they want their water tested. So I don't think this needs future legislation.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yeah, I would like to say that there is a program going on now where homeowners can, if PFAS is found in their wells, out of compliance, that the state does and will offers you basically a loan, and it's not a loan, it's a grant, and I know I'm taking advantage of it myself right now. I was surprised to find recently that my neighbor who was selling his home had to have a PFAS. Had to have water testing, which is normal for sales, and turns out he had PFAS in his well, which nobody knew. Nowhere near any other area where there's PFAS. So we were notified by the state because we were within 500 feet of his well, and my well had had PFAS in it as well. Most of it, there was one that was out of compliance, and so we had the water tested, and that's what it came out. And lo and behold, we found out that there was this program, and I'm saying, wow. So, it and other I've made certain other people in my town. I've even broadcasted on the our public channel that this is available and people are wanting to know about it. I'm getting people who have nowhere near where I live want to have their wells tested. So there's nobody saying no, we don't want our wells tested. There are people who want their well tested, and should get it. So and you're looking at somebody who's a convert. so that's just for the record. Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? If not, on the motion to not recommend, will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. For Bill 1452, Representative Harb,
Yes.
Representative Huff,
Yes.
Representative Gold, Representative Horgan, Representative Creighton, Representative Dodge.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Healy,
Yes.
Representative Mayville, Representative Post,
Yes.
Representative Smith, Representative Speng is not here. Representative Grassi, Representative Gotling, Representative Cohen,
Yes.
Representative Connors is not here, and Representative Vale. Representative Kelly is not here, Representative Moran is not here, Representative Egan is not here, and Representative Renzullo.
Yes.
Okay, so that is 16-0, motion passes.
Thanks to the committee. Now I have to get to GNC, so
Okay.
much less friendly crowd.
Okay. All right. Okay. And all right, I'm gonna skip over right now 498 because I want to get to everything that Representative Deers may have want to testify on. So I'm going to jump over 1498 unless there's somebody here for it, and go. Will you be speaking for 1602? Okay, I'll open up the hearing on House Bill 1602 relative to perfluorinated chemicals in drinking water. Chair recognizes Mr. Deers.
Thank you very much. Again, for the record, my name is Ted Deers. I'm the Assistant Water Division Director at New Hampshire DES. 1602 was something that we certainly agree with the intent of this, which is to make sure that people in daycare, schools, and licensed child care facilities are drinking good water. I mean, I think that goes without saying. There were some major problems with this bill, and this really had to do with the fact that, and this is now, I believe that there's actually some negotiations in the works on some future legislation that will come up that's already on a different track. But that the problem is that most of a lot of the facilities that look at childcare and schools are already on public water supplies. So this idea that somehow the public water supply is already under the MCL requirements. So the water that's coming out of the taps is already being tested at schools and daycares for that purpose. So that is already going on at because of the programs that we already have. So that really is the challenge that was the primary challenge to this bill, is that it is important to only test the source of the water and not the actual taps. And the other issue with that is that it's not like it's lead, where it's coming out of the pipes, where it's coming out of the spigots. So there's really no reason to go and test actual, the delivered water. It's really the source that matters. And so the other issue is that we should only be testing those facilities that do not get water from public water supplies. So, and that is now ongoing. And I think that you got a report from DES in June. This committee sent a report on our testing results from across the state. So you I think, are well aware that this is already underway. And finally, the actual regulation of PFAS or any other compound for schools and daycares is not a DES responsibility. It's actually a DHHS responsibility. So this bill would have dramatically changed the entire structure of how those daycares and schools are being regulated for their public health. Not just what the children are drinking, but everything else about the whole public school system and the safety of that for our children is currently in the hands of the public health officials. DES is an environmental agency, and we do some public health. They are a public health agency. And so it is much better to have that there. We advise DHHS on their practices. They use the numbers that come out of what we do, but changing the entire structure of the way that we handle public health for our most vulnerable populations, that is a very, very big change, which this bill and the testimony to which really didn't take into consideration the enormity of that change. So there are efforts now afoot to be able to work on that issue. This is not going to go away because it is an important issue. But in terms of this bill and the current effort, there is not a need to move this forward. So that's my take on it, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Representative Grassi?
Yes,
for
Mr.
discussion.
Deers. If without this bill, do you have the ability to test private schools and childcare centers?
Thank you for the question, Representative. I think that as Representative Renzullo noted, and as the previous testimony just noted, we have no shortage of ability to go test things. If you're within 500 feet of a known PFAS source or PFAS detection, we go and test those wells. So there is not a problem with us getting in and testing daycares if there's a reason to do so. So this is something that is ongoing, and you've also seen that we've tested now thousands and thousands of wells. And those have been prioritized based on where we know sources and where we have detections. As we get those detections, we draw those circles. Those circles, start to intersect. We start to have a better understanding of where we're headed. So there are, so we will continue to be doing that. There's no shortage of either ability. We have no shortage of dollars to do that at this point, which is really fun to say. And there's no, shortage of personnel or other desire to do that. So again, that's going to continue on a pace. I don't think that this is an issue that is right now one that we need to deal with from a statutory perspective.
Any further questions? Representative Grassi? No question. Anyone else? Representative Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When in the previous bill, the discussion of requiring DES to inspect private wells or homes with private wells, I thought that you needed policing authority to do that testing if people hadn't asked for it. Is it different for private schools?
Thank you for the question. Because we don't regulate all the private school public health stuff, I'm not sure that I know the precise answer, but my understanding is that DHHS has the authority to require any kind of testing that is needed for those daycare and schools. I think this is a really important question because oftentimes a daycare can be everything from the Boys and Girls Club to basically an in-home daycare system. So it's really important that DHHS is the one who tracks all of that. Otherwise, we would be in the realm of just somebody's private well. So there is, in fact, a whole regulatory structure for those. In fact, just personally, my son was a private school teacher, a daycare teacher, big 6'1" burly guy with a beard who was taking care of the babies, the baby section. So anyway, it was pretty funny. But they were visited very frequently by DHHS and by other agencies to look at their facilities, and we're very constantly under supervision from those agencies.
Thank you.
Representative
Yeah.
Grassi.
Now, you basically what you said was here is that they get inspected by DHHS, and I'm quite familiar with that. My wife having run daycare centers, childcare centers for, if I say daycare center, she gets mad at me, but childcare centers for a number of years, and still doing that as well. But DHHS doesn't test their water, and I'm not aware of any requirement that they would be in testing their water for that. Should this bill maybe be amended to direct, instead of having DES do the work, having DHHS do the work instead, because so that it's a part of what's included in their requirements for licensing. I understand the complications. I certainly wouldn't want to take the public health issues out for other issues that they do, but getting into water quality isn't something that DHHS has the expertise at doing, but maybe this bill could be utilized to take care of that.
So I don't believe that there's a representative from DHHS here behind me, so I hazard to speak on their behalf. What I would just say is that I think what you've noted is that this probably shouldn't be a Department of Environmental Services responsibility. I also understand, because I know that we're actually writing a fiscal note right now for an LSR, that there is an LSR on this already. So I know that there's already work going on, and that's one of the key pieces of that, of the LSR that I know that we've already received the request for a fiscal note for. So my suggestion is that that this is already well underway to address that very issue.
I was under the impression, and this that if that daycares had to have their water tested at a periodic basis, and if not, if they did not do that, that had to be they have to notify their clients or their customers that fact. Is that?
Again, I don't
Yeah,
have
okay.
a wealth of experience in that part of it, so maybe potentially Representative Grassi knows the answer to that, but I can certainly find that out and get that to you. It was my assumption that they do test. Well, let me just look at my notes here. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. So the department, this is what I had from our notes and what we testified on or over the course of this session, is that DHHS is actually working on this right now. this is something, and that's where I think the nature of the fiscal note that I just mentioned to you is that there are already resources and being put towards this very question.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just address that as well, I know that they are doing lead testing, and that's been something that the Department of Environmental Services has been doing, but that is the only requirement that I'm aware of, that they actually go out and test at the waters. When we passed the bill for lead testing, there were I got a lot of complaints from my wife and others that are involved because it's just an additional requirement they have, but they have been doing that for some time now.
Any other questions by members of the committee? Seeing none, Representative Grassi, are you looking, you would like to have, is it your contention that you would like to, you would not?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to see this bill recommended for further legislation, and what I think that there is a problem that exists out there, and it's something that we should address. The form that I think Mr. Deers has said is that there's another bill out there someplace, and I think that this would just be in support of that if need be. I know I have resubmitted the LSR, and I think that there are certainly some changes which Mr. Deers has recommended that I will be looking at introducing into that bill. So I would certainly recommend further legislation.
Yeah, that's puts us in an interesting conundrum in that we're really talking about recommending a bill that we would have the subject of which we would have no interest in. In other words, we'd be strictly a DHHS issue. No, Representative Smith.
Well,
any
Mr. Chair,
thought on that?
anything involving PFAS and clean water should be of interest to the committee, whether or not the bill comes to us or not. That would be my thoughts.
It's just what I really meant to say was that our function would such that it would not be something that we would be taking an interest or our function does not require us to to examine that legislation. So we would be if we went ahead and recommended future legislation, we would be recommending it for somebody else. So it's one that I've never faced. Somebody must have faced this before, some committee, but we haven't. I'm just throwing it out for discussion. Representative Grassi.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think that one of the things is the conundrum that we have here is that we never know where the bills are going to go. I mean, we've gotten some strange bills here that we said, why are they here? And it's up to leadership to where they send particular bills. I mean, this could be a PFAS bill, and if it is a bill with PFAS and testing of water quality in childcare centers and schools, private schools, that it certainly could be a bill that came here. But then again, it could be a bill that goes to another committee for some reason. It could end up in education. There was a major bill that we had this last year dealing with lead testing that ended up in education. And it was, interesting thing, but we talked about it and we ended up talking about it in our committee here at the end of the year. But you never know where these bills are going to go. And so I think that us making a recommendation wherever that bill happens to show up, it shows that this committee is supportive of at least addressing the issue.
Good defense of your position. Any other discussion on this bill? Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I'd have to speak against recommending future legislation based upon what we've heard and the fact that this is a two-part bill about renaming, and the
No,
other
no.
part,
wrong bill. No, it's not.
Skip one.
We
no,
skipped
we
one.
skipped that one.
No, it's, we voted that we already killed that one.
Well, based upon what Mr. Deere said,
seen-
I don't think it really should be recommended, since there are already other legislation pending and fiscal notes being written. I would not support a recommendation for future legislation.
Or anyone else wish this, is that a motion? Did you make, or are you just speaking to that, or is that a motion?
I wasn't sure if we had a motion on the
No,
floor
there
by
is-
my
there is-
illustrious. So I'll make my motion not to recommend future legislation for this bill 1602.
Is there a second to the motion? Second by Representative Creighton. Yeah, you've already spoken on your motion.
I have, and I no need to speak any further. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Creighton, wish to speak? On your second? Anyone wish to speak on this bill? The motion presented? If not, will the clerk please call the roll? The motion is to not recommend.
Okay, for a not recommend on 1602, Representative Harb,
Yes.
Representative Huff,
Yes.
Representative Gould, Representative Horgan. Yes. Representative Creighton. Yes. Representative Dodge.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Healy.
Yes.
Representative Mayville. Representative Post.
Yes.
Representative Smith. No. Representative Spang. Representative Grassi. No. Representative Gotling. No. Representative Cohen.
No.
Representative Connors is not here. Representative Vale.
No.
Representative Kelly is not here. Representative Moran is not here, and Representative Egan is not here, and Representative Renzullo.
No.
No. Okay, so that's
Oh, excuse me. Excuse me, yes.
yes. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 yays, and 1, 2, 3, 6 noes. Motion passes.
Motion passed.
Right, 1, 2, 3.
All right, moving on, 1618. Adding several perfluorinated chemicals to the list of per and polyfluoroalkyl substances with maximum contaminant levels, and establishes a cumulative total for the maximum contaminant level of per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Mr. Deers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The department was not supportive of this bill for a variety of reasons, some of which are very technical. The fact that this adds two chemicals, one is PFBA and one is PFBS. The problem with this is that the number that was recommended for PFBA is at least 2 orders of magnitude lower than what the toxicological evidence would suggest it should be. So that seems to fly in the face of making good science-informed public policy. Secondly, for PFBS, the number is very high, which probably means that there's going to be, if we would ever find this, there would be some other PFAS compound that would be so much lower that this would be irrelevant. So that one again is one that we don't have also very much toxicological evidence for at all. And so we would be making a number which is at this point essentially a screening number, which is really not what MCLs are supposed to be. These are all things that are being looked at by EPA as part of its current science effort, and so we'll get informed by that. The final thing, and we've testified on this many times, is the department is very uncomfortable with setting a combined PFAS limit. And while at the face of it, it sounds reasonable, the problem is that each of these different PFAS compounds for which we have MCLs have different kinds of toxicological effects. So some affect one part of the system of your body, others affect other parts of your system. Adding them together is not really understanding the toxicity by which they're actually looking at how they affect the human body. And so we think that this again flies in the face of having, I think, a very good science-informed public policy for these compounds. And this is something in particular that the National Science Academy is looking at, and we will see additional reports based on the combined effect of PFAS compounds in the next reports that are released when EPA releases its draft MCLs. So all of that is going to be happening. All that's going to be coming out. We'll see some better information. The department is certainly open to any of that information as it makes recommendations to the future of how we're going to regulate PFAS compounds. Thank you.
Any questions by members of the committee? Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Deers, for taking my question. And this does not talk about, well, my question is not about this bill in particular, but I just wanted to clarify the bill that set the law that may set the MCLs for the four PFAS substances. Did that bill also or was there another bill that authorized DES to or mandated, whatever the word would be, to set MCLs for things that science came out and said were dangers to health? You know, to if they found other PFAS substances that were a problem in New Hampshire, that you would be charged with setting levels for them or doing the research on that with the toxicologist.
Thank you for the question. One of the things that's a requirement is that we are doing periodic reports to the legislature on PFAS issue. And that is one of the things that we look at all the time. So as new research is coming out, our toxicologist, John Patali, who I believe has been in front of this committee previously, he is always in contact with both a regional group as well as national groups that are looking at the science as it emerges. So as we learn about these compounds, for example, Gen X there's a significant amount of research going on about that. And so as those compounds are understood better, as we have the scientific rationale to back those up, we will be making recommendations for future MCLs. There are thousands of PFAS compounds. We know a bit about a half dozen or maybe 20 or 30 that we know something about. Understanding these are generally chronic effects. They're not acute effects. That makes it very, very hard to study. So to the extent that we have other biological models that are looking at these, they're looking at the effects on different species and how those can actually be then ramped up to the human effects is work that is still ongoing, and we'll see a lot more of that. This is a lot of funding going on to PFAS science right now. So I expect that we'll see that more of that. But the answer is yes, we are required under various different pieces of legislation in the past to report back to the legislature on what's going on in the world of PFAS.
Any other questions by members of the committee? Seeing none, Representative Smith, you have a motion.
I make a motion not to recommend this bill for future legislation.
Do I have a second? I will second. Yep. Do you wish to speak on your motion?
No, I think I've said what I need to say.
Uh, on my second, I concur. Seeing no one else to speak, will the clerk please call the roll?
For the motion of not recommended on Bill 1618, Representative Harb,
Yes.
Representative Huff,
Yes.
Representative Gould, Representative Horgan,
Yes.
Representative Creighton,
Yes.
Representative Dodge.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Healy,
Yes.
Representative Mayville, Representative Post,
Yes.
Representative Smith, Representative Spang, Representative Grassy, Representative Gotling, Representative Cohen,
Yes.
Representative Connors not here, Representative Vale,
Yes.
Representative Kelly is not here, Representative Moran not here, Representative Egan not here, and Representative Renzullu.
Yes.
Okay, and that is 16-0, motion passes. Got
Okay.
16.
Next bill, just moving down the list. So we can get Mr. Deers out of here as soon as he can. House Bill 1620, you want to speak on that, identifying part of the Merrimack River as a protected river. Do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on this bill. This is 1620. This would have added the middle section of the Merrimack River by statutory vote rather than going through the actual nominations process that is laid out in statute. So the department suggested that maybe that we had a process in place for this to happen, and if the good folks through Manchester wished to go through that, that was afforded to them, and that there were reasons, and I think you heard testimony here by many people, that there were real good reasons for going through that process to vet all the different people who might be affected by it and allow them a voice in that process. And that is essentially both a local, state, and both a local and state process that includes both the department and ultimately this committee and the legislature. So that approach, when we heard that the communities themselves, while they weren't necessarily opposed to the idea, they had not gone through this process. They haven't had the ability to hear from their stakeholders either. And so the idea is that if people really do want to go through that on the middle part of the Merrimack, that there should be an approach to do so that followed the normal statutory process. That said, there were also elements of the statute as it was approved in 1990 that were potentially problematic today. So while the department, and I think many people testified that we should keep the designations of the Merrimack the way that they are, there was some language in the existing law that talked about limiting withdrawals for Pennachuck Waterworks, as well as some other language that was put in, which is really sort of archaic today. If in 1990, when people were thinking about this, was a brand new program that was brought forth by some extraordinary people to build a program that says, hey, if communities really think that they have a special resource, there should be additional protections, additional opportunities to protect that river in the future. And we have 19 rivers that have gone through that process. And so these designated rivers have that ability. But at the time in 1990, there was a great deal of fear about what this would do to future development, about what this would do to other aspects, including sort of water withdrawals for drinking water that we would, be drying up the Merrimack River. We now today, fast forward, 30 years, we have great programs in place to protect water quality. We've gone through 30 years of this program that's been highly successful. People believe that they have a voice, that no one is sort of trying to do something that is untoward to the communities that sit around these rivers. So we think that there's an opportunity here to remove some of that archaic language and the primary reason for that is really about, comes back to the PFAS issue that we've just been talking about, and water supplies in the southern part of the state. This is really critically important time right now because of the loss of water supplies to PFAS and because of the general pressure on the southern part of the state. Places like Salem and Plastow and Wyndham and Atkinson and Hampstead, places which we would refer to as having unfortunate geology, those places that don't have enough water to support the really important development that occurs in the southern part of our state. It's important to build the flexibility into that moving forward. So we would suggest that potentially this might be a bill that you might want to recommend to move forward for future legislation, not to address the middle part of the Merrimack and its designation as a designated river, but rather to address the language in the existing language in the bill and potentially remove that language so that there's a lot more flexibility related to dealing with future water supply problems in the southern part of the state. That's all I got to say about that, as Forrest Gump would say.
Anyone wish to ask a question? Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Deers, for taking my question. You refer to the different cities and towns such as Salem, Hampstead, Wyndham, and I am aware that through the Drinking and Groundwater Trust Fund, when I served on that, we there was an agreement made that those towns would get either build new wells or get water from the Pennachuck Water Works, I believe. And so has that been affected by this statute that is archaic? Has that prevented that from happening?
Thank you very much for the question. The answer is not yet.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the answer is that as we look to this, and there are currently discussions afoot to talk about bringing additional pipes under the Merrimack River, and looking at those service areas and who's going to service which towns in the future, where the different franchise areas and all of that. If you ask Pennachuck today, and I think Don Ware or maybe it was Boyd Smith talked about this during the testimony on this particular bill, they have not yet run up against that problem, but they may in the future. And so that is the reason why this has been recommended both by the water suppliers as well as by other folks who've been involved, that we go ahead and take care of that before we actually get to a point where there's a problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions? My concern is that this bill as written, which focuses specifically on a section of the Merrimack River, is not ready for prime time. And the way it was put together, it should be, it would not be recommended. My concern is that what you're looking to do, why does it need to be in, what value is it putting this request or changing what you're wanting to put, what you want into this into this interim study? How does that affect your getting what you want? Which one is a bill? Well, just ask me. Or ask somebody else on here. That
was, in fact, going to be my response
Yeah.
to you, is that I don't think it's necessary to use the same structure of this bill to move this issue forward. And if there's anyone amongst you who would like to create an LSR, I have some language in my back pocket that I would be happy to give you.
Does someone wish to do that? No, well, no, but you'd volunteer for it. But I mean, well, I think we all say that. But there's there will be somebody on this committee who will be available.
I appreciate that. And so, again, I will suggest that we have language that that we have prepared, and I'm happy to send it to anybody who's interested. So,
Okay.
I will, at the permission of the chair, I'd be happy to send it to the committee as a whole, if you'd like.
Yes, why don't you do that? And if anybody is interested in it, otherwise I will pick it up. I'll just add it to my list of 10,000 things to do. Pardon? Yep. As everything I do is bipartisan. That's right.
I'll be happy to pick it up, Mr. Chairman. Maybe with my good friend in the corner, we might jointly support that.
Very, very good. Thank you very much. I think you have your, sponsors.
Thank you very much. I'll be sending you some language this afternoon.
Okay. Now, getting back to 1620, Representative Smith for a motion.
No, I'm not making a motion.
Oh.
I'm making a comment.
Oh, okay.
Originally, I was thinking that we would recommend for future legislation and put in the LSR, or recommend the legislation that Mr. Deers is recommending, but upon I am really concerned that if we vote to have future legislation, it will make people start thinking about changing the process of designating any river as a protected river. And I really do not want that to change, the process to change. I think it has worked well. So whoever makes a motion for not recommend, I would support it.
Does anyone wish to make a motion or a question?
I'll make a motion to not recommend for future legislation.
Motion made by Representative Spang. Do I have a second? Representative Gould, a second. Anyone wish to speak on the motion? Representative Spang, do you wish to speak on it?
No, I think that Representative Smith has put it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Representative Gould, do you wish to speak on your second? Okay, anyone else wish to speak? Seeing no one, will the clerk please call the roll?
For not recommend on 1620, Representative Harb.
Yes.
Representative Huff.
Yes.
Representative Gould. Representative Horgan. Yes. Representative Creighton. Yes. Representative Dodge.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Healy.
Yes.
Representative Mayville. Yes. Representative Post.
Yes.
Representative Smith. Yes. Representative Spang. Yes. Representative Grassy. Yes. Representative Gotling. Yes. Representative Cohen.
Yes.
Representative Connors is not here. Representative Vale.
Yes.
Representative Kelly is not here. Representative Moran is not here. Representative Egan is not here. And Chair Renzullo.
Yes.
Okay, so it's 17-0. Motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Deers, are you here for are you here for Senate Bill 257 as well?
I certainly can be if you wish to hear additional information about that.
Think probably, we do have a report, a committee report on that. I'll recognize Representative Harb to read the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did have a subcommittee
Subcommittee.
on this. Representative Healy supported local control. Representative Harvey Bolia spoke about the Dover pilot program. Representative Spang supported local control and spoke about a few difficulties with the bill as written. Representative Gottlieb supported the concept, and I supported future discussion regarding nitrogen and local control. The vote of the subcommittee was 5-0, recommend for future legislation, and I make that motion.
First of all, I'll
Hear from,
recognize you for the motion after I recognize you for the motion. I'll recognize you for the motion after we hear from Mr. Deers.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on this. I think that Representative Harb summed up the committee discussion perfectly. I think it was a very healthy discussion, and what this bill would do would be to provide enabling legislation that would allow for communities to include septic systems as part of either stormwater or their wastewater utility. The idea, of course, that this has multiple different kinds of effects or might be used in different ways. One could imagine an area around a lake that's not amenable to, say, sewering, to putting in a sewer system, but could have that group of people in, say, a housing development around a lake that could join together and create a septic utility that would provide the ability to have a common pumping schedule, to have a common replacement schedule, to have a very predictable cost associated with it. So that's one way in which you could see something like this. We talked about the nitrogen issues around Great Bay, that there may be certain communities that want to include that as part of their all of the above approaches to reduce nitrogen pollution in the Great Bay estuary. And we also heard, about low-income folks who might be benefited by having their communities with the ability to be able to serve up grants and loans that would be unavailable to individuals, but could be available through a community to be able to help low-income individuals that have failing septic systems. These are all possibilities that could come out of adopting a septic utility as part of some other utility within your community. So I think that was the nature of it. But as Representative Harb so clearly identified, there are some problems with the language as it exists today in the bill, but most of those problems appear to be rectifiable. So I think that the committee had a healthy discussion about that, and I think that we agree that it ended up in a good spot.
Any questions from members of the committee? We
don't have a
haven't
second.
recognized them yet. I haven't asked for a motion yet. I just is only speaking on. I am concerned about the amount of power this bill might give to certain, we are not, let me say it this way. We are not a local control state. We are the municipalities are an offshoot of basically the children of the state. Local control can get, if not carefully managed, can get us in situations where more authority is taken by those at the local level than we really intended. I think we've seen that in recent times. At least I feel that's what's happened in recent times. Also, on the issue of the Great Bay, we have the EPA has fallen into a lot of money lately. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you correct me if I'm wrong, I think as I read the recent legislation, they have, I think, is it tripled or quadrupled the amount of money that's been given to the EPA to basically around projects. And so there's a lot of money out there. Well, if I remember the estuary issue, you gave us this pie chart where all of the things that were going into the bay and all the things that were causing the problems, and the only one the EPA was saying to go after was this little section concerning septic systems and not about anything else. So maybe if the EPA wants it done, well, they should be able to kick up some more money. And hopefully they will be able to, they have a lot more to give out. Let's see if our whoever they may be, our representatives at the federal level should be looking to get something for the estuary. I'm concerned about looking at a recommendation to move forward on this. However, I'm not putting pressure on anyone. This is me by myself. So vote your conscience, but I will be voting against the motion. And you wish to speak? Or? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that generally New Hampshire is not a local control state, and we do have some items that our state has preemption over, like the use of pesticides and fertilizers. Towns can't regulate them, but that is more so because landscapers or people who work on projects where those items are used cross lines and are going in all different towns, and then there's different rules for each town, and that could be problematic. But this one enables towns, municipalities to set up a program for their town and develop a residential program for the town, which would then help the town to better deal with this situation. And Mr. Deers just testified that low-income people there could be a fund developed to help the low-income people, so it was not overwhelmingly expensive for them. And the EPA, although, we always would like more money from them, much of the wastewater treatment plants that are getting funding this year and last year, it has come from the federal government. So it's not the state. So we are getting money from the federal government. But I believe, agree with Representative Renzullo that we need to do something and that we should have some future legislation, although this bill is not it. I think that's what you said. Is it?
Probably.
Yeah. But I mean, you said you were, yeah, thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on the motion? Well, there is no motion, but anyone else wish to speak on the issue? Senator Grassi.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think what you're looking at here is a bill, and particularly after listening to the testimony from Mr. Deers, this bill, even though we are not a local control state, when you're dealing with this type of an incident with pollution in the communities, each community deals with it differently. Trying to have regulations across a state that, one size fits all is impossible and doesn't always work. And particularly when you're taking a look at communities that have water bodies next to them, or coastal communities or river communities, communities need to take a look at how they deal with contaminations differently. And I'm looking at my community of Rochester. Now, Rochester may or may not take advantage of this, but if we did, it may be a way that we could help reduce some of the costs that's being inflicted upon the ratepayers because of discharges into the Cocheco River, which go into Great Bay. A lot of the seacoast communities are being charged a tremendous amount of money, are being forced to do tremendous improvements to their wastewater treatment facilities because of contaminants that are going into their rivers, which end up in Great Bay. By doing this, it would give each individual community the ability to deal with it the way it sees fit. So yeah, we aren't a local control state, but we also all talk about local control, that it's a nice thing to be able to do things at the local level instead of having the state mandate things to them. This is something that allows communities the options, another option in dealing with pollution of their water supplies and also the environment. These discharges, whether it be into an aquifer or, a river or something that ends up in Great Bay, communities need to be able to have some flexibility in how they deal with the problem. It's not just a mandate that comes down from the EPA and says, you shall do. Let the communities have some flexibility, and this is one way we can give them flexibility. And as was mentioned by Mr. Deers and also Representative Smith, this allows communities also to work with those people who are less fortunate, who are unable to maybe replace a septic system by providing resources for them through grants or loans. And I think this is something that we should recommend further legislation on this bill.
Representative Harvey Bollier?
Thank you, Chair. I did vote to recommend this in the subcommittee. I'm somewhat unsure of what those designations mean, but I will be voting against. I will be voting not to recommend it, just because of the tax. When we heard the hearing, when we had the hearing, it was mentioned that the intent was to set up a tax for nitrogen on property owners based upon square footage of impervious surface of the particular properties. And I believe it sounds like it's going to be very costly to homeowners. It's vague. And so those are my concerns. I realize there's a nitrogen issue, but having such a large portion of the nitrogen coming from rainfall, these are my concerns. Thank you.
Representative Spang for
Thank you.
comment.
I regret this is not my bill, but I think it's too bad that it got tied in with the stormwater utility. I was the chair of the commission that looked at stormwater and came up with this as the ideal solution. But I think that it has led our committee to confuse what's happening here with the way a stormwater utility is set up to work. First of all, no stormwater utilities have been approved for any municipality in the state of New Hampshire yet. So I think if this were to be implemented, it would depend upon the stormwater utility. I think what Mr. Deers is saying, that there are a lot of other things that could come out of this type of approach that would have nothing to do with the stormwater utility. It would have nothing to do with a tax at all. It would have nothing to do with the amount of square footage of impervious. That all relates to the stormwater utility, which I think obviously needs to be struck out of this approach. What Mr. Deers is pointing out is that there's a lot to be explored in terms of how we're going to deal with these failing septic systems, or particularly, I think someone was mentioning at the hearing about little neighborhoods where the whole neighborhood has failing systems. And something needs to be done collectively, perhaps, but it has nothing to do with setting up a stormwater utility. Also, just setting up, if an organization was set up, might be called a utility, but I don't see any reason why it should be, where it would be a structure where money could come in from the state and the federal government to then be given out to people who need that money to pump their septic systems, to deal with failing septic systems, or to perhaps set up a neighborhood septic system, a collective septic system. So that has nothing to do with any taxes whatsoever. I think that given the number of things that Mr. Deers outline for us a way that we could be helping to deal with these septic systems all over town. Some of them collective, some of them a problem because of the financial disability of people to deal with their systems. That whole situation or condition that he is outlining is ripe for us to be coming up with some idea about how to work more collectively to deal with these.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? If seeing no one else, Representative Harb for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll again motion to recommend this for future legislation.
Is there a second? Representative Creighton for a second. Wish to speak on your motion.
Yes, briefly, thank you. As was mentioned, as written, I would not support this bill, but it has a flavor and a concept concerning certain items that I think should be addressed in future legislation, and which I think we're probably going to see. So that's why I made the motion to recommend for future legislation. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no one, anyone else wish to speak? You just want to speak on your motion?
No, I just think it's an opportunity to move
Okay.
forward, and it's a good start.
Okay. Representative Smith, did you wish to speak?
So the motion is to recommend for future legislation?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
On the motion, will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Motion to recommend 257, Representative Harb.
Yes.
Representative Huff is not present. Representative Gould. Representative Horrigan. Representative Creighton.
Yes.
Representative Dodge.
Yes.
Clerk votes no. Representative Healy.
Yes.
Representative Mayville. Representative Post.
Yes.
Representative Smith. Representative Spang. Representative Grassy.
Yes.
Representative Gotling. Representative Cohen.
Yes.
Representative Connors is not present. Representative Vale.
Yes.
Representative Kelly is not present. Representative Moran is not present. Representative Egan is not present. And Representative Renzulu
No.
is no. Vote, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 14 yeas, 2 noes, motion passes.
Representative Harb, you'll write the report. Okay, let's see. Is that, I think that's it for you, Mr. Deers? You can go and have a heavy drink.
That's
or-
255.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you. And to those who are, for whom this is their last executive session, I wish you all well. It has been truly, truly spectacularly fun to serve here with you, and I applaud your service to the state. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your help. Let's back up now for, let's see, we've got the House Bill 1641, FN.
31.
Representative Creighton, you are reporting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We met last week regarding this, had extensive testimony from Captain Dunleavy. Bottom line is that as a result of the testimony, we recommend going forward with Captain Dunleavy's proposed legislation for a commission to study the issue. Essentially, New Hampshire is out of compliance with federal law regarding voter registration because portions of our registration go to DES, Fish and Game, and the Peace Commission. Those portions are in violation of federal law. So what the subcommittee looked at was a two-prong approach. One, Captain Dunleavy is working with federal legislatures, specifically Senator Shaheen's office, to get the federal law modified so that the 7 states that are out of compliance can fall in compliance. That is an ongoing discussion between the state of New Hampshire, the Coast Guard, and the senator. By the same token, the Coast Guard requires us to move forward to fall within the existing laws. And Cam Dunleavy's team has come up with a way ahead. And so what we want to do is to codify that with a commission that would help New Hampshire resolve the conflict under the existing laws. And so the subcommittee recommended 5-0 to proceed with legislation, to recommend further legislation. Over.
Is that a motion?
Is there anyone else wish to speak on the, well, this, we're not, you haven't made a motion, have you? No. Just to speak on the issue. Does anyone wish to hear from the captain? I think, Captain, if you have anything more to give that hasn't been covered by Representative Creighton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I don't. He's eloquently put it out before you today, summarized what we've discussed in the past, and we would appreciate any support you could offer.
Okay, well, as you recall, we heard your testimony originally on this bill, even though the bill had nothing to do with what you were asking for, but it sounded like an important thing to do because the Coast Guard was I would say harassing you, but they were serious. They were expressing their concerns, and I think we did this. We adopted this to be able to, first of all, to get the issue to show the Coast Guard that something is happening, and I guess something is happening, and so thank you for your efforts, and I think we're glad to be supportive. Is there any other questions or or comments by members of the committee? If not, will clerk please call, make a motion first. Clerk, you may make a motion. I'll recognize
Yes.
Representative Creighton for a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move that we move forward. We recommend further legislation on Bill 1641.
Can I second it?
Seconded by Representative Smith. No one wishes to speak on the motion? Do you wish to speak on the motion? As a second? Or-
No. Briefly, I would say that as chair of the Exotic Weeds and Species Committee, we had a meeting Monday, and at the last meeting that we had in September, Captain Dunleavy explained this whole history with us, and we agreed at our meeting earlier this week that we would probably, once we saw the legislation, come out in full support of this as a committee.
Anyone else speak on the motion? If not, will the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you. To recommend on Bill 1641, Representative Harb.
Yes.
Representative Huff is not present. Representative Gould. Representative Horgan.
Yes.
Representative Creighton.
Yes.
Representative Dodge.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Healy.
Yes.
Representative Mayville. Representative Post.
Yes.
Representative Smith. Representative Spang. Representative Grassy.
Yes.
Representative Gotling. Representative Cohen.
Yes.
Representative Connors is not present. Representative Vale.
Yes.
Kelly is not present. Representative Moran is not present. Representative Egan is not present. And Representative Renzullu.
Yes.
That is 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 16 to 0. Motion passes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now we go back to 1498, establishing a safety program for off-highway recreational vehicles and snowmobiles. Or anyone wish to make a motion on that?
I'll make a motion
Representative Smith.
to not recommend for future legislation.
Not recommend? Okay.
I believe so.
Okay. We have a second? I have a second by Representative Spang. Okay, do you wish to speak on your motion?
Of course. Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we voted on this bill earlier, the legislature was in the midst of passing House Bill 1188, which sets up a long-term commission to study OHRV statutes in this state. And Representative Egan, who sponsored this bill, thought that the commission to do this would have more time and could address this issue and set up a safety program. And in listening to comments from the stakeholders that I have spoken with, and Representative Renzullo, I believe, met with the OHRV community last week, this is something that is going to take all the stakeholders coming together. So then rather than having yet another piece of OHRV legislation, that the OHRV commission could take this on and get it done more quickly. So that's why I would say to not recommend for future legislation, because the issue's already being going to be taken care of by the commission, which is now law and getting ready to have its first meeting.
Representative Spang, speak on your second.
Refreshingly, I have nothing to say.
Beast. Where's my nitroglycerin tablets?
Pigs are flying.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this? I do, as the maker, Representative Smith, has said, I did meet with some of the people on who are part of this the proposed commission, who are interested to find out about what the issues where we stood on this bill, and we will be setting up a subcommittee of that commission. At least that's going to be the proposal, that the subcommittee of the will work on the substance of the bill, because there are a lot of issues that have to be worked out among the stakeholders. So with that, if there's no one else, will clerk please call the roll.
Thank you. On not recommend for House Bill 1498, Representative Harb.
Yes.
Representative Huff is not present. Representative Gold. Representative Horgan. Representative Creighton.
Yes.
Representative Dodge.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Healy.
Yes.
Representative Mayville. Representative Post.
Yes.
Representative Smith.
Yes.
Representative Spang.
Yes.
Representative Grassi. Representative Gotling.
Yes.
Representative Cohen.
Yes.
Representative Connors is not here. Representative Vale.
Yes.
Representative Kelly is not present. Representative Moran is not present, and Representative Egan is not present, and the chair.
Yes.
It's 16-0, motion passes.
Okay. And I think we are on the last one, am I not mistaken?
Correct.
Which would be SB 258, relative to the graves of African Americans alive during the period of American enslavement. Chair recognizes, well, before we get into this, before I recognize you, is there any discussion we want to or anyone we want to hear from the audience? I don't think there is anyone on this bill. Okay, I'll recognize Representative Grassi for a
Thank-
motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're recognizing me for a motion. I'll move to recommend for further legislation.
Right, now, also you have you're gonna write, or
Mr. Chairman, yeah, the committee heard extensive testimony on this, and particularly from the folks at Historic Resources and the Municipal Association. And we were also given examples such as the situation which occurred in Portsmouth where graves were discovered, and the way the remains were handled and reinterred. They felt that the process was an excellent process to use, and they felt that this bill helped codify the process for dealing with these graves. The recommendation of the committee was to recommend for further legislation, but I think that the one problem that we had is that we could not agree on what that was to be. I fully expect that the sponsor will be reintroducing this bill next session, and I would hope that the committee would look at it favorably and work on our differences to try to work something out. There was a lot of discussion about, that all people should be dealt with equally. What is the interesting thing here is that when discussions, particularly with the folks from Historic Resources, spoke, it was that people of African descent were not treated as humans. They were treated as property. Many of them are not buried within any well-identified cemetery plot or parcel, and they tend to be found everywhere. And it's similar to the way indigenous people are found in many cases. And there are a number of cases, Historical Resources stated, that there were, certainly this is something they deal with a lot when they find these graves. And a lot of it is just folklore sometimes, that they find that a certain person had a farm, he owned a number of slaves here in New Hampshire, and that they are buried somewhere in the field, on the back of the field, or the back 40. And that we needed to have special considerations because the way that a lot of these African burials they were very ceremonial, and that in order to deal with them, we need to deal with them differently than we deal with others, particularly European descendants. And, when they were found, working with the descendant community was quite important. When they deal with an indigenous person, they deal with the descendant community, being the Indian tribes that are in the area, dealing with those people. And what they would be very interested in working is to work with the African American descendant community in the reinterment of many of these bones that are discovered. So it was recommended further legislation. We couldn't agree on what that legislation may be, but I think that the committee overall did agree that we should do something more.
Anyone else? Representative Creighton, then Representative Cohen.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Representative Grassi indicated as the results of the subcommittee meeting. I do believe that language is possible that would be acceptable to all, and I think we should work on that. We'll figure something out. I think we're going in the right direction.
Representative Cohen, then Representative Post.
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of this bill in some form. I think we promote and we legislate to value diversity in New Hampshire. I think this as a foundation for making up for a problem that might exist and not reflect positively on valuing diversity here in the state. So I'm definitely in favor of pushing this forward and having it looked at as whatever, if there's tweaks in the future.
Representative Post.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say the historian Ben Wilson spoke to us, and he was going to look up some information we had questions on that I think will be helpful in creating legislation. Thank you.
Is there anyone else, Representative Vale?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was a fascinating hearing. It went on for a couple of hours.
Great hearing.
It was great. It really, really was. And I just want to reiterate, when we met with the gentleman who testified at length from Cultural Resources, this
Mr. Wilson.
happens monthly that they, discover someone. And the man, he was very good at discussing what the chain of custody is for a corpse that is found, or a skeleton, or whatever it might be, and how important it is to get that to the next person. So I'm thinking about it like belaying it to the correct culture. And I really, really appreciate what Representative Cohen said, because the diversity is something that we are working at so hard right now. And it really does recognize that there's a specific situation in this culture. And I would hope that we would always look at cultures and think about their specific situations the way that we have this one. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else wish to speak or observe? I will, I'm going to give my 2 cents. First of all, the hearing that we had, I wish the people who were had testified had been at our original hearing. You really, we learned a lot. At least I learned a lot, and I think most, everyone else there learned a heck of a lot. I think it started with Representative Creighton said, it started off with, what happens if I find a skull in my yard? I mean, and, and it was quite an education, and a lot of back and forth. I think one of the things that, to me, what I saw and found was that instead of focusing the issue on one specific group of people, it would have been better to have raised the treatment of graves opened, and of individual graves, raise them to a specific level that is commensurate with the fact that they are our history. They are the graves is where most of our history ends up buried, and our knowledge comes much from archaeology, comes from graves. That we should treat them all with the same level of respect. Unfortunately, I feel that we, by focusing on one specific group, we're not giving equity to all the other groups who may have similar feelings. Treat all the same. That's what I felt we should have come out with. We did not. We came out specifically with that was not undertaken by the vote. I don't believe. However, so I voted against the recommendation but I'm going to change my vote, and I will recommend, I will vote to go on, because I think it's important that I will try to my best to change this to a bill that recognizes the same dignity of all people and treatment of all people whose graves are being moved and or graves are found. I think also the issue was, if you read the bill was focused on a segment that was focused on the most extreme ends, where you find a body in the woods or something, to a cemetery where someone has been buried in past times. And there's a whole wide spectrum in between. We concentrated on, mostly on the initial finding, the finding of graves that we didn't know were there. And that, so we did miss the discussion on the other end of the spectrum. But other than that, I think we did a lot of work, and I thank the work, Mr. Wilson Ben Wilson from the Cultural Resources for doing a fantastic job of educating us on what he has to do. And it was very, very interesting. And if you get a chance, if it's on the YouTube, you might want to listen to it. Is there any other comments? If not, will clerk please? Oh, is there your second? Ms. Post, will the clerk please call the roll?
Okay, to recommend House Bill 258 FN, Representative Harb.
Yes.
Representative Puff is not present. Representative Gould. Representative Horrigan. Representative Creighton. Representative Dodge.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Healy.
Yes.
Representative Mayville. Representative Post.
Yes.
Representative Smith. Representative Spang. Representative Grassy. Representative Gottling. Representative Cohen.
Yes.
Representative Connors is not here. Representative Vale.
Yes.
Representative Kelly, Moran, and Egan are not here. Representative Frunzulu.
Yes.
Okay, that's 16-0. Motion passes.
Is there any other business before the committee? Representative Cohen.
I just want to address the committee and thank them for some of the work we've done this year. I have chosen not to run for reelection, so I will not be serving on this committee next year. But I know it's been a trying year between the Republicans and Democrats in general, but in this committee, most people are similar in thoughts on protecting the environment, and I think it's a good example of a lot of bipartisan work and cooperation discussions going on, and I just thank you for that and wish those that are coming back next year in both parties to continue that, and the best of luck to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to, Representative Spang? That's right. Those are mine, so what'd you do with theirs? They're on my desk. But thank you very much, Representative Spang, and, yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think that, certainly we're all going to miss Judith's brownies, but I think one of the things we're going to miss more as well is that we have a number of members who are leaving this year that have a tremendous amount of talent and knowledge about the issues that we deal with. This is my third term on this committee, and I'm looking around the room, and everybody else on this committee, except for the three who are leaving us, have less time than I have on this committee, and yourself, Mr. Chairman. I neglected you intentionally. So, but
I know, I don't want you to get upset.
three members, and not to belittle certainly Mr. Cohen next to me, but the three members that we have that are leaving us have years and years of experience on this committee that I know I will certainly miss, and it's something that we cannot replace. And that I want to thank them for the years that they put in here, and all the talking that Judith has done. It's a personal joke between her and I, but the thing is that they're just so invaluable, and I don't know what I need to get you on speed dial, because I know I will, if I'm here back next year as well, I will be calling you frequently. Particularly when it comes to OHRVs, which we need that. We need that. These people here, and we're losing them this year. So, thank you for your service, and your friendship.
Anyone else before I say something? Go right ahead.
All right. I've been serving on this committee for 10 years. I've been the chair, I've been the ranking member, I've been the vice chair. And one of the things and before that, I was on Environment and Agriculture for 2 terms. I learned from the chair and the ranking member on that committee the advantages and the benefits to everyone on the committee when the chair and the ranking member can get along and work together to develop good policies and not put politics first, but put policy first. And I think that what I learned on E&A and I brought over to resources, and since that time, it's been just a pleasure to serve on this committee and work with all of you. And I think I'll stop there.
Is there anyone else?
Yes, I'll have to say something. Thank you.
Yeah, I
Uh,
would figure.
Well, I've been on this committee 12 years, and one segment of 2 years when I had a hiatus. I still came down and testified and had other people putting my bills in. And I would say, you know, some of our big adventures were Wild Goose, and which was an unending saga, finally settled. And I was able to do a lot of things for my lake community, and that was really, really important. And Representative Ronzullo, I'll probably, if you're back here, which I suspect you will, I'll be down sitting out there and, you know, encouraging you, you know.
Yeah.
But
Like that, right?
yeah,
Pointing
yeah,
your fingers.
yeah. And you know, the one thing that's sort of too bad from my point of view is that because of COVID, I did not get to know the Republican members of this committee as well as I might have liked to. And that was sort of, that I think was unfortunate, because I always enjoyed and felt it was important to work with the other part of the committee, whether we were in charge or we were not in charge. And it was my privilege always to be able to find bipartisan sponsors of bills. And I hope you'll all keep doing that. I'm sure you will. So, no applause needed.
Representative Spang?
I've served on this committee for 22 years. Once, I guess it was 2 years maybe as chair. And it's always been really fun. I enjoy natural resource issues. So I've really enjoyed all of the people that have been working with me at DES and DRED, et cetera, and EPA, but also the members of the committee. I have worked for decades on land protection. And I remember talking to one of my colleagues, my older colleagues who had been at it much longer than I, about, dang it, that's a really important piece of property, and she keeps saying she wants to conserve it, and she never does. And he smiled at me and he said, Judith, you're in it for the long run. You know, good things will eventually happen. You know, the time and the effort that you have put into it will over time have some effect. And I'm thinking that this committee is the same, that because we haven't had much time to get together and to share thoughts and opinions and information, perhaps it's going to be a longer term before everybody on this committee is as comfortable with these issues and with the people we work with as those of us who have served for a longer time. But I welcome you to that journey. You will really enjoy it. You'll find that your opinions about things and your understanding of issues will draw together closer and closer. as time goes on, and the state of New Hampshire will very much profit from it. Thank you all for a great run.
I'm sad. I'm losing friends. And maybe that's what you build here. You build relationships. And I've had relationships with, friendships with Representative Spang, Gotling, you know, all of you, and of course with Representative Smith. And you learn from them. I mean, I've been here, I've been here now, this is my 8th term, going on 9. Maybe. unless the voters catch up with me. But I've learned that and 7 of those years have been, 7 of those terms have been here. And once I got here, I stayed because it was the best committee. And I've learned so much. I've learned so much from Representative Smith. Mostly how to, I'm a political person. If you look at my record here, I've been deputy, whip. I've been floor leader. I've been all of those things on the political end. Only twice have I been chair, and this is one of them. And being legislative as opposed to political is very different. And it was a change for me to an extent because when you're legislative, you have to put in all people's ideas, and Representative Smith taught me that. So I'm glad she's going to be around on the OHRV commission, because believe me, she got the temperament for it. I don't. But other than that, I can go on for an hour, but I won't. I think, but for those who are not coming back, I'll miss you. For those who will come back, you'll wish I left too. So, thank you. Does anybody else have something they wish to say on that? Representative Vale?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that when I don't know why we do what we do, and we do so many things for a reason, and those reasons are based on institutional history that can never be replaced. And I mirror and echo what Representative Grassi has said. I would like to have everyone on speed dial. But on the other hand, I feel like if you get away, you get away. So I'm going to let you get away. But if you're leaving and you want to get involved on the many commissions that we have, that's a good way to stay in touch if you want to. But thank you so much. I feel so blessed to have worked with you as a returning member. I feel so blessed to have seen friendly faces when I came back in 2018, and I don't want to stop, but thank you.
Brownie time.
It's brownie time. We are adjourned.